What does that have to do with the fact that we're in the earliest days still?
No, we're in the earliest days,
but and everything else.
Okay, when Jensen said that demand's insane for Blackwell, that lasted for about, we had a little bit of gain, a little bit of bump.
Yeah.
And then today we have a bigger bump. It's like the interview occurred yesterday. Crazy town.
Given what is yet to come, what is just beginning to come in terms of the need for compute from these large language models, it's not just the training, which will come to an end at some point, or at least slow down, because there's basically you've taken in all the data available, then you have synthetic data. Right. But the running of the models themselves, the inference is using enormous amounts, even with the increase in efficiency from every new version of ChatGPT, for example. Enormous increase in efficiency, but then it allows for all sorts of new things that require way more compute.
Well, I agree. I've been a big bull, but I'm just saying a lot of people feel enough. I mean, that that NVIDIA stalled, that Supermicro was the worst performing stock in the S&P last quarter.
Maybe it gets back to the endless conversation we have, for good reason here, about data centers and power. And that being the gating issue. I
saw GE Vernova downgrade today. That's about data centers and power. I'm a big believer in data centers and power. You know how I feel about natural gas.
I know, but my point is that it may not be that the need is not there for the NVIDIA chips or the need for the compute, but the ability to actually construct it as quickly as possible may be more difficult.
Well, did you think the Accenture deal was a big deal with NVIDIA?
I don't have an opinion on it. Did you think it was a big deal?
You need it to be not just hyperscalers. You can't build a business, and they're not, by the way, around just Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. I like the deal because what it said is that the large companies that don't know how to use it are going to go to Accenture, and Accenture will figure it out for them, or they're going to go to Dell or HPE. So there's these other companies that may want to buy them, not just Meta and not just Tesla.
We did mention yesterday in your absence, though, executives at chip companies selling about $1.3 billion in stock in the quarter.
It's endless. Selling is endless. And look, they've made a lot of money. Look, people sell for a million different reasons. And if they didn't sell and you were their advisor, I think you would say, look, I should resign because you've got so much money in these. That's my only explanation for it, because otherwise, why not let it ride? But these people have such huge gains. And they could also be saying, look, capital gains rates will be going up if one of the two people who gets in has got a Democratic House and Senate. Capital gains going way up.
All right, folks, NVIDIA. You watching NVIDIA? It continues this sort of almost stealthy move at this point. Now, this morning, it got a boost from Morgan Stanley, which says it expects Blackwell production to reach 450,000 chips. You know what that means? That's $10 billion. This is the fourth quarter. Obviously, that's great news, and good news for my next guest. I'm going to bring in Gabelli Growth Funds Portfolio Manager John Belton. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You've got a lot of NVIDIA, right? This is one of your favorite ideas right now.
Yeah, one of our biggest positions in all of our growth funds at Gabelli.
The narrative over the Wall Street narrative has been the play is over. Not necessarily, we see the orders. Obviously, the orders are mind-boggling, but that this is sort of a toppy-ish kind of thing. It can't last forever. The stock is ahead of itself. How much of that concerns you?
Well, let's just go back to what CEO Jensen Huang said this week on CNBC. He said the demand for their chips right now is insane.
Insane.
It's a pretty strong word.
Yeah. Well, I never heard of that network you're talking about, but I did hear the word insane before in a commercial. I had fun with this. Before you were born, there was this retail outlet called Crazy Eddie. Yep. And the guy used to come on TV and say, our prices are insane. Then they went out of business. It was a scam and everything. So
I think it's a different kind of insane he's talking about here.
Okay. Is he laying it on too thick?
Well, I mean, we can talk about NVIDIA. I think we're still early innings in the AI. I think AI is a technology that's going to have very deep and long-lasting impacts for many years, and NVIDIA is going to be one of the prime beneficiaries of that. But I think stepping back, I was watching one of your earlier guests talk about the Magnificent Seven, talking about being kind of long in the tooth in that rally. Right. I think I would actually defend a lot of those stocks. I think NVIDIA included. And maybe let's remove Tesla from the conversation. We can call it the six-pack.
Right.
These are companies with really strong revenue growth, strong margins, still expanding margins, good shareholder-friendly capital allocation policies. And year to date, I think they've generated more of the index's earnings growth than they have the index's performance. So I think the fundamentals really do justify the stock performance year to date for these stocks.
By the way, I agree with you. I think it's amazing. Everyone's saying, oh, the 493 are going to have pretty strong earnings growth at the end of the year, and still the Mag 7 will probably enjoy better growth at much higher, a much more complicated.
Well, and I think you could also say earnings expectations. The Mag 7 have been over delivering on expectations. The S&P 493 has actually missed expectations versus the start of the year.
Right.
Which NVIDIA and AMD outperforming today. They're two of the top stocks in the S&P 500 over the past month. Both are also scheduled to hold AI events early next week. So could that be the next catalyst for these names? Joining us now is head of Melius Tech Research, Ben Reitzes. Ben, happy Friday. We've talked to NVIDIA this week. We've talked about NVIDIA a lot this week. Where's the opportunity in chips across NVIDIA, which has already been huge? Then you got AMD, and you got Intel, which hasn't been doing so well.
Well, you're talking about two of my favorite names right there, NVIDIA and AMD. NVIDIA just sounds like it's great. I mean, you know, congrats to you to have that great interview the other night with him saying the word insane. I loved that. That sort of tells you what you need to know. Our checks on Blackwell are great, and everybody wants it. That should drive some significant sequential growth in January and then again in April. And then we think the gross margin starts to improve quite a bit on the back of Blackwell after a quarter or two, and that'll get the stock going again. So, you know, we feel pretty good there. We know some folks have voiced some concerns on your network as well, but we're seeing, you know, really good demand. And remember, OpenAI just launched a bunch of stuff, and we're not even inferencing with that stuff yet. And Apple, you know, is getting out Apple Intelligence, which hopefully drives some of the OpenAI. So we feel good there. And on AMD, they got a big event next week. We don't think they're bringing us out there, you know, to lay an egg. And we think that last year on that event, it really popped. And, you know, there is room for number two there. So we feel good about AMD as well.
Speaking of Jensen Huang, here he is with us just a couple days ago.
This is the beginning of a new wave called enterprise AI. And then after that, as we're entering into enterprise AI, we'll simultaneously developing, cultivating the wave after that, which is industrial AI.
So we've got industrial AI that Jensen is talking about. We've also got Apple Intelligence and perhaps an application-driven consumer AI wave. Which is more investable?
Well, I think it's all investable. I think a lot of stuff gets started in consumer, and then it creates actually a lot of interest in the enterprise. And just like what happened when we had the Chat GPT mania, then a bunch of enterprises woke up to it. I think as as consumers start using visual intelligence from Apple as well as from Google, their version of that, and those kind of things where you're seeing things with your phone and then asking questions about it, that's going to drive a lot more awareness of AI in general. And I think in enterprise, you're going to start seeing many enterprises want to work with small language models so they can cater it to their industries. And then you're going to also see more adoption of the NVIDIA NIMS architecture, which is really going to fuel more enterprise adoption. And we're in the early innings there. We haven't even seen the interest in AI agents, which are autonomous, really pick up. And that's going to be huge. You've been hearing a lot about it from Benioff. I actually think Microsoft's going to drive that more than a SaaS company. You know, we're just in the early innings, John, on so many things. I'm pretty excited.
All right, I hope you're all doing great today. The S&P finished the day up 0.9%. NVIDIA finished the day up nearly 1.7%. And Tesla finished the day up 3.9%. The entire market breathed a sigh of relief today after news that the port strikes have ended until January and news of a stronger than expected jobs report. While the port strikes coming to an end is great news for the entire market, it is especially great news for Tesla. As I've been saying for a while now, if Tesla trades lower following delivery numbers, then I expect the stock to find a bottom and then trade higher from that bottom the closer that we get to October 10th. Have we already reached the bottom? I don't don't know, but I hope so. Considering that the robotaxi event is this coming Thursday, I think the bullish price action in Tesla stock should be strong next week, as long as nothing unexpected is happening at that time. As many of you know, I am currently in a Tesla swing trade, and I hope to sell this position sometime next week. I think the robotaxi event may turn out to be a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event, and so I am riding the momentum right now, and I will likely exit most of my position prior to when the actual event starts just in case. I want to be completely honest with you all, and so that is what I intend to do with my position. Now about NVIDIA. I am bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA, and I think NVIDIA's brightest days are ahead. But I am cautious about adding to NVIDIA and cautious about adding to the rest of the market between now and November 1st for multiple reasons. Back in 2016 and 2020, the market began trading lower in mid to late October, reaching a relative low on the Friday before the election. This year, that would be November 1st. Additionally, NVIDIA tends to move in cycles in between earnings reports. Prior to NVIDIA's last two earnings reports, the stock reached a relative low 3 to 5 weeks prior to the upcoming earnings reports. If this cycle were to repeat itself, then we could see NVIDIA experience softening price action lasting until sometime in late October/early November. So given the pattern the market followed during the last two election cycles, and given NVIDIA's typical cycle in between earnings, I am cautious about adding to NVIDIA until November 1st. Once we get to the actual week of the election, I think it is likely for NVIDIA and the rest of the market to start trading higher, as long as nothing unexpected is happening in the world at that time. I think NVIDIA is likely to trade higher starting in early November in anticipation of the company's next earnings report. I think this is especially likely given Micron's great earnings last week, and because Blackwell revenue should start to show up in NVIDIA's next quarter guidance. So far, NVIDIA has said they expect several $billion of Blackwell revenue in Q4. Several means more than two, but not many. So let's just say NVIDIA is expecting $3 to $4 billion of Blackwell revenue in Q4. With this in mind, if NVIDIA guides Q4 Blackwell revenue noticeably higher than $3 to $4 billion, then I think the stock likely trades higher on that news. It all comes down to Blackwell, and market participants are laser focused on Blackwell right now. I think the price action that we've seen the last couple of days is proof of that. Back when Jensen spoke at Goldman Sachs' recent technology conference and said that demand for Blackwell was strong, the stock rallied. And a couple days ago, after Jensen said that demand for Blackwell is insane, the stock rallied. So that is something to keep in mind in the future if you're trading NVIDIA stock. Right now, it all comes down to Blackwell, and that is what market participants are focused on. Looking ahead from a long-term perspective, I am bullish on the future of NVIDIA, and I seriously would not be surprised if this company doubles over the next 2 years, given NVIDIA's current growth trajectory and upcoming product cycles. Demand for NVIDIA's products is so extremely strong, as the largest companies in the world are practically waiting at NVIDIA's doorstep for the latest generation of their product. As long as things remain peaceful in the Pacific, and as long as none of the hyperscalers significantly reduce their capex spending, then I think NVIDIA should be just fine for at least the next 1 to 2 years. At least that's how I view the situation. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great weekend, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.